The Red Cross stands ready to help you. Now they need your help. Stay tuned. Carolina People's coming up next. Good morning. Welcome to Carolina People. This morning we're at the Fox 43 studio. We're focused on the American Red Cross, and we're visiting with Jeannie Carmichael, the Executive Director of the American Red Cross's Horry County chapter. Good morning, Jeannie.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Thanks so much for being in this morning. Exciting to focus, obviously, yesterday, getting Freesia in and getting Leslie Yancey in, to think about you and John coming in today to talk about so many activities happening here in the area and so many important lives being changed on a regular basis. Thank you for coming in. Are you originally from the area, Jeannie?
Originally from Illinois, the Midwest, but my husband moved his family down about 16 years ago. We've been here in the Myrtle Beach area. He took a job with a corporation, and we have not regretted one day of living here on the beach.
Probably a lot different from Illinois.
Oh yes, 50 degrees below zero when we left back 16 years ago, so we haven't experienced that since then.
Do you get family from Illinois to come down?
Of course we do.
I'm sure.
Ones that we don't normally see are now visiting.
Well, that's
so
exciting.
It's been wonderful.
Yeah, Jeannie, when did you join the Red Cross?
I became a volunteer in 1989, actually right before Hugo, and I was a CPR instructor. I'm a nurse by trade, but it worked out well to volunteer my time to do CPR classes and first aid classes for them. And then they also needed a volunteer coordinator for blood mobiles. So while I did my nursing, I coordinated those volunteers. And then a paid position came open in '93, so I applied for that and became their director of emergency services, which I did for 5 years. And then a position for the executive director came up, so I applied for that and have been the executive director with the chapter for 5 years.
Golly, Jeannie.
Time just flies by.
It does. That's exactly right. You came in 14 years ago as a volunteer, and now you're their executive director.
Well, you know, the Red Cross is all about volunteers. Our board of directors, you know, we have 24 active volunteer board of directors. We have 7 advisory board, and the Red Cross is run by volunteers at the national level and here at the chapter.
I think I heard Leslie say yesterday that for every one paid person on staff, there's around 90 volunteers.
For our chapter, that is our ratio. Nationwide with chapters, it's 1 to 45, so we're actually doubled that, meaning we have half the staff that we probably should have, but again, we have volunteers that provide leadership. We train volunteers in almost everything they do, so we have been very blessed and very fortunate with our volunteers.
Jeannie, you said you were a nurse by training, and that obviously had a huge impact on originally volunteering with the Red Cross. Has that been helpful on a daily basis?
Well, I think the work that a nurse does is very similar to the work in the Red Cross, whether it's training someone how to be safe or performing CPR or first aid skills, to the compassion one needs in working with families that have suffered a disaster and working with people like our good volunteers who want to help others. So there was a lot of similarities, and I really have enjoyed, especially working with volunteers. That's very rewarding for me to do. Yes,
very definitely, to have them recognize the impact that they're making on a daily basis in those volunteer positions. When were our local resources last mobilized in response to an emergency, Jeannie?
Well, we have disaster action teams, STAT teams, and just the past weekend there were 4 fires that probably the community didn't hear about, but we had 4 families in motels and temporary housing. One was a tree falling on a mobile home during a storm. 3 others were fires. So our disaster action teams, which we have spread out throughout the county, and Horry County is large, so we have 4 of them, but they're there to respond 24 hours a day for fire needs or for feeding firemen. We do that quite a bit. When the firemen will be on a scene for several hours, they will ask, for us to provide that refreshment of drink, meals, even on search and rescues. We've provided the meals for the firemen there too.
That is amazing, Jeannie. I didn't know the Red Cross did that. How would they be fed or nourished if the Red Cross wasn't around?
Well, I'm not sure, but we have the resources and the personnel, volunteers to do that.
That is fantastic. That is amazing. When you think about the activities, the service the Red Cross manages during such an emergency, during let's say the tree falling on the mobile home or the three fires. When you're out there on site, I mean, what's that like for the disaster action team?
Well, again, they're trained in how to provide that listening ear, the comfort. They know how to write out our vouchers so the family can go to the store of their choice to get new clothing, to get the groceries, or even prescription medication, eyeglasses. They know what hotels or motels that we have agreements with, that they can put them quickly somewhere so they can rest their family and make the decisions that that family needs to make. Mm-hmm. But they carry with them their little teddy bears, their blankets, and they receive that training so they can give comfort to those families.
That is fantastic. Jeannie, with hurricane season underway, what does the Horry County chapter do to maintain readiness to meet a widespread emergency?
Well, many people think that it's just being prepared starting in the summertime, but it's really 365 days a year that we are constantly updating agreements. The equipment that goes into our 10 shelters, which is cots and blankets and first aid trunks, administration kits, lanterns. We place thousands of dollars in each one of those shelters every year, and batteries have to be replaced. First aid supplies will expire. It's constantly updating those agreements, those policies, and those resources that we have.
Golly, Jeannie. Who's participating with the Red Cross in dispensing emergency services?
We are fortunate in our area to have the cooperation of our local Department of Social Services. All those workers are trained in Red Cross shelter management, so they are part of our team of volunteers, along with the Department of Public Health. We call it DHEC here locally. They're trained to provide the first aid in our shelters. That's a wonderful resource to have.
Jeannie, when we think about the Red Cross, obviously Leslie hit on many of the aspects yesterday, but for viewers who may not have caught her on the show yesterday morning, what are some of the services that the Red Cross provides to the community?
Well, most people know about disaster relief. They know about our emergency communication for the military families here locally. A lot of people don't know that we provide the information and referral, which is say someone who has a disability, who's elderly, they now can turn to a hard copy of a resource directory for Horry County or even Georgetown and Williamsburg to find out what agencies provide services. So that's available free on hard copy and also online if they have internet connection. Again, we have volunteers that will continually update the information on these agencies. We have in Horry County over 360 agencies listed that are providing services.
360 in Horry alone?
Just in Horry County. That's a lot.
That is amazing. And you said folks could go online. Is that the www.horrycounty.redcross.org?
Right. It's without the www. It's just horrycounty.redcross.org.
Okay.
And they can access our website, and when they see the words resource directory, they'll click on that. It spins around like a hurricane, and it takes them right to a search website where they can search out a keyword. Say they want to search out volunteer opportunities. They can click on that word. It will bring up all the agencies that have volunteer opportunities in Horry County, Georgetown, and Williamsburg. It does cover all three of those counties. Another program we have that covers 3 counties is our Caregiver Advocate Support Program. Mary Lou Brown is the advocate director who looks at the needs of caregivers. These are people who are caring for a loved one in their home due to Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and they need support. We want them to see if we can keep that loved one in the home as long as possible. So she provides, in her federal program, she's able to provide to the family up to $500 a year, which may be building a wheelchair ramp. It may be providing adult daycare. I mean, there's many things that this program can help these caregivers with.
Golly, Jeannie, when we think about all the impact and so many things, the health and safety education, the caregiver support, you're talking about the information referrals, it is an amazing task just to be active in overseeing a chapter. This is gigantic.
Well, again, it's because of volunteers. We have very few staff members, as you know, but over 600 volunteers that are trained and able and willing to provide these services.
Jeannie, how important are local donations to a chapter?
Well, it's vital. I mean, many people still believe we receive federal funds for disaster relief or military or any of our programs. Other than the caregiver federal grant, there are no federal funds, nor state, nor city, local funds. And still other people believe that the national headquarters supplies funds, and it's just the opposite. We have to raise the funds in Horry County for the services in Horry County, and that's donations. We're supported by United Way, but that's right now at 20% of our budget, so we have to raise the rest of it.
The United Way is only 20% of y'all's budget.
Right.
The other 80% is coming from local donations.
Donations, a little bit from the CPR program, but primarily donations.
One of the most important things that Leslie pointed out yesterday is this is direct support. Y'all raise the funds here, they stay here.
Right.
Of course, so many charities raise the funds here, send them off to other areas because research is done in other areas, whether it's American Cancer Society, American Heart Association, whomever it is. It was so exciting to hear her focus on that aspect of direct support. The money's raised here and it stays here. That's amazing.
And it's good. The Red Cross, again, looks and addresses needs of their community. And that's why we do the information referral. Not every Red Cross chapter does that, but Red Crosses nationwide have responded to those community needs, and that's what we want to continue to do.
Jeannie, were you a part of the response team to New York City after the 9/11 disaster?
I did spend 2 weeks in New York City in November. Amazing experience. The national system of volunteers, and I went as a volunteer. And just so people understand, that National Disaster Relief Fund doesn't pay salaries. I mean, we're trained, and we as volunteers agreed to spend 2 to 3 weeks on a disaster site to help the victims of a disaster. And we added 2 functions, which made 9/11 unusual. I never had a function of spiritual care, and that was added under the Red Cross. We had volunteer ministers from all across the country come, and the Red Cross was able to provide housing for them to provide the services, which was badly needed. We also added a function called safety and security because of anthrax and all the things going on. So it showed that Red Cross is flexible, and it was an amazing experience.
Golly, Jeannie, I'm just stunned sitting here thinking through all the aspects of which the Red Cross is so active. What about some of the lessons that the National Red Cross learned from the 9/11 response and how that has impacted your procedures locally?
Sure. Well, again, it's being flexible. I mean, after 9/11, Dr. Healy had announced that the funds collected will be used for that child who is not sleeping at night due to being worried, the anthrax attacks, and the American people said no, the funds need to go to those families. We listened to that. The funds are going to those families, and Senator Mitchell's report is out. It's on the redcross.org website, commending the Red Cross for how much assistance has gone to those families. There is still long-term funds available, and they'll be there for those families years ahead, so we can help them with their long-term needs.
And Jeannie, when viewers may think of the National Red Cross and the local Red Cross, what's the primary difference between the National Red Cross and our local chapter?
Well, there are about 1,000 chapters nationwide. The national headquarters supports those chapters in resources. That may be literature, it may be just resource in people in finding out information, but they are the coordinators of that national disaster response that send people to disasters anywhere in the country.
That's the primary difference. Lastly, Jeannie, where does the Horry County chapter stand with respect to donations this year?
Well, our donations have been down. The biggest drop was in CPR classes when the war, back in October even, through, I would say, March, while the nation was watching to see when war, if war, was war going to happen, businesses weren't thinking CPR so much, and maybe it's due to the economy being down, but that part of that program was probably 25% below, the budget. Again, those funds help us do the other services. We had a fundraiser that wasn't as successful as we had hoped, and when you don't raise the money for the services, our concern is, do we have to cut services? And the board is going to be meeting next month to look at what, if anything, we need to do.
You heard her use the word help, and helping people help themselves every day is the recognized focus of the American Red Cross. We're visiting with Jeannie Carmichael, the Executive Director of the Horry County Chapter. Jeannie, thanks so much for being with us this morning.
Thank you, Greg.
Absolutely. Stay tuned to John Trudeau coming up next on Carolina People. Good morning. Welcome back to Carolina People. This morning we're at the Fox 43 studio. We're focused on the American Red Cross, and we're visiting with John Trudeau, the President and CEO of the Better Business Bureau of Coastal Carolina and the Vice Chair of the Board of Directors of the American Red Cross Horry County Chapter. Good morning, John.
Great to be here, Greg.
Thanks for being with us this morning. It's so exciting to hear Jeannie Carmichael talk about so many of the important services that Red Cross provides, but so many of the needs that are still apparent on the local chapter, and obviously getting you in to think about all the efforts that I think she said 24-member board of directors is involved in.
That's right.
A really big deal. And how long have you been the vice chair, John?
I think this is my second year as vice chair of the board.
Okay, but you've been on the board for how long?
4 years now.
Oh, God, big commitment there. Big commitment. John, real quick about yourself, where are you from originally?
I'm originally from Canton, Ohio, the Pro Football Hall of Fame city.
Yeah.
I'm very proud of that.
What attracted you to the greater Myrtle Beach area?
Well, I think it was the climate and the people more than anything else, and it's a decision that I've never regretted.
It is truly a special place. What had you been doing before you relocated to this area?
Well, when I was in Ohio, I worked with the Better Business Bureau system there. I started there as a volunteer arbitrator, went into membership sales, and I came here in membership sales in 1992, and osmosis took place in 1997 when I took over as president and CEO.
So you've been with the Better Business Bureau for how long now, John?
Oh, my, too long.
A few years there. We don't want to add those together. I'm sorry. How did you come to your position, when you think about actually taking on the reins as president and CEO of Better Business Bureau of Coastal Carolina, when folks think of the Better Business Bureau, I mean, obviously conjures lots of thoughts, but Coastal Carolina serves how many counties?
Our bureau services 15 counties, Greg.
15.
We have 7 counties in South Carolina: Horry, Georgetown, Williamsburg, Marion, Dillon, Florence, and Darlington, and 8 counties in North Carolina from Wilmington all the way up to Fayetteville.
Is that right? It more or less covers our entire viewing area.
It sure does.
That's amazing. Well, that's a great tie-in. I'm so glad we can get you in. What's the purpose of the Better Business Bureau, and what are your responsibilities directly as president, John?
The Better Business Bureau is a nonprofit organization that stands for ethics in the marketplace. We really try to promote ethical business in the marketplace. It's a nonstop effort. We try to communicate to the general public as well as our business members that there are a lot of schemes and scams and con artists out there, and we try to educate them into what's going on and try to protect the community from some of these con artists.
And you said your first position early on back in Ohio was as an arbitrator. What exactly is that?
Well, back then, we still have a program called the Better Business Bureau Auto Line, whereby if a consumer purchases a brand new vehicle, and it has to be a brand new vehicle, not used, and there are repeated problems with that vehicle, they can take it to an arbitration program and have a hearing with the manufacturer and the consumer and a trained volunteer arbitrator, which is what I was doing, a volunteer arbitrator.
That's the great word, volunteer. Are there many other aspects of the Better Business Bureau which volunteers can be involved?
Mostly it's done by staff. We have some volunteers that help us quite a bit, and we certainly have a volunteer board of directors, too, that are wonderful people. But mostly work is done by staff.
Which probably helps dramatically keep a good level of objectivity in place and make sure that folks are focused. But volunteer boards are so vital. And what prompted you to get active with the American Red Cross locally, John?
Well, it was another volunteer activity. I was very much involved with the Energizer and then the Ingersoll Rand Senior Tour Championship, where the Senior PGA Tour was in town, and we had that 7-year run with that. And for a couple of years there, I was the volunteer chairman of that event. And in 1999, in November of 1999, when the tournament was taking place, I had the honor, and it was a real honor, to be able to present the American Red Cross that year with the proceeds from the tournament. The check itself was in excess of $100,000, and it went directly to the victims of Hurricane Floyd. With all the flooding that was going on in this area and the people that were out of their homes that were really victimized by that flooding, that $100,000 check went a long way to help those people. And it was probably the most, I don't know how to say this, something that really touched me, being able to see the impact of what $100,000 could do to help people. In the grand scheme of things, $100,000 is not a lot of money. When you talk about the millions of dollars of damage that a flood causes, but what little help we were able to provide was monumental. It meant a lot to me, and I know it meant a lot to those people.
I'm sure it did. Had you been involved with the Red Cross prior to presenting that check and then going on in a volunteer capacity?
No, that was my first direct involvement with the American Red Cross. Years ago, for many years, I'd been a blood donor, and somehow I got away from that. But now I'm active in the Red Cross here and a blood donor also.
Well, I know you're active at a lot of community organizations. I've seen you many, many times at activities with the Optimist Club, and you've been very involved with the Optimist Club, and they sure stretch out to support lots of charities. But this involvement, and now you said as a board member for 4 years.
Yes, sir.
Okay, what are some of the activities involved for board members?
Well, personally, I'm very much involved in heading up the Committee for Strategic Planning for the chapter. And, of course, we have Finance Committee and Human Resources Committees. There's a number of committees involved, and it's just an oversight situation to make sure the chapter is being monitored and run the way it's supposed to be run by national standards. And I can assure you that Jeannie Carmichael and her staff are number one.
Well, it shows, and we've met a couple of them yesterday, and obviously seeing Jeannie today, truly number one. What kind of support has the Horry County chapter received from local businesses, John?
Well, overall, it's been very good. For example, the Knight Foundation alone has come up with a substantial donation. Wachovia Foundation, Wachovia people, and Orby Ferguson, the people have been wonderful to us. And Paula Ellis with the Knight Foundation. We're just so thankful to people like that. Community leaders that have really come forward, business leaders have come forward and made donations, and we're really so thankful for that.
Absolutely, and there's so many folks. I'm sure there's lots of folks involved in the charitable. You've got a big fundraiser coming up, I think almost 10 days from now.
We do. It's a week from Saturday, August the 9th, at Bay Tree Plantation. It's I think it's the 8th annual, what we call the Hurricane Classic.
Yes.
Our golf tournament. We're really looking forward to that. It's a tournament. It's a golf tournament that usually has a field of about 120 players. So, which would mean about 30 teams. It's a 4-person captain's choice, and it's only $50 per person to play in it. If anybody would be interested in putting a team together or just coming as an individual, we'll place you on a team. Just call the chapter office, and we'll hook you up real quick.
What's that number, John?
477-0020.
Okay, great. And you said there's still openings for individuals. Are there openings for teams?
Yes, definitely opening for teams and individuals, either way. And if there's a business out there that might want to consider being a whole sponsor, we'd love to have you. Just, again, call the chapter office at 477-0020. We'll give you all the information about the golf tournament and how you can help the Red Cross by sponsoring a whole.
And you said this is the 8th annual. So has it always been out at Bay Tree Golf Plantation?
I believe it has. One of the people who had served at one time on our board of directors, Mr. Charlie Thrash, was involved with the Red Cross and involved at Bay Tree Plantation and worked up a great program for us. And it's a fantastic facility out there. And it's been really good for us and good for them, too, I believe.
And, John, if someone can't play, but they know a business who could possibly sponsor a hole, you said the whole sponsorships are around $100, $150?
I believe it's $150 for the whole sponsorship, right? And we welcome any business can participate in that or as a team.
Fantastic, fantastic. What about some other fundraising activities going on now, John? Are there some other activities going on in the works? I know the American Red Cross Horry County chapter is a United Way recipient, and so there's a time in the very near future when United Way kicks off their fundraising, and so that there will be. But I think there's some other activities coming up in the very near future.
That's right, and you brought up a good point. We are a United Way agency. We get some of our funding, but it's less than 20% of our funding comes from the United Way. The rest comes from local donations. So that's why we're out here plugging away, asking for some help. Right after the golf tournament's on August the 9th, the week of August the 10th through the 17th, we're having what we call the American Red Cross Heroes Program. The Heroes Program is a situation where individuals or civic clubs, organizations, churches, businesses can get involved with that. And what they do, they challenge their customers or their friends or relatives or whatever to make a donation of some kind or a commitment of some kind to assist the Red Cross. I know I'm going to be involved. I'm very much involved in bowling. I'm going to ask my entire bowling league to match my challenge. I'm going to challenge them to a certain commitment. For example, a penny a pin. So if I bowl a 500 series, it's going to cost me $5. I'm going to ask the entire league to make a similar commitment. So when people do that, as a community, we get as many people as possible doing those kinds of challenges and becoming heroes to the American Red Cross. It'll help us all.
What's the goal, John? How much are y'all trying to raise that week?
For that week, we're looking at a goal of $30,000.
Great, great, great. Lastly, John, why do you feel it's important that our community supports our local chapter of the American Red Cross?
Greg, I can't even imagine what this community would be like without an American Red Cross chapter. Of all the good that we do, not only on a daily and a weekly basis, helping fire families and military families and all the health and human services programs that we provide, if and when there is a disaster in this area, without the American Red Cross, it would really be a more than a disaster. It would be a catastrophe, Greg. We need the Red Cross. We need to support it.
You heard John Trudeau say it. We need the Red Cross and we need to support it. Whether you're out there golfing on August 9th or you're a hero in the Heroes program the week of August 10th, get out and support the American Red Cross. 843-477-0020. John, thanks so much for being with us this morning.
Thank you. It's a pleasure's been mine.
Absolutely. Stay tuned to more Carolina People coming up next. We want to thank Jeannie Carmichael and John Trudeau for making today's Carolina People so special. Get out and help the American Red Cross. Your help is critical.